Happy New Year. It's been a minute. We haven't seen you guys in a couple months, but thank you so much for tuning in and or for watching the playback of the live stream on one of our social media channels. I am Andrea Clark. I am the Deputy CEO for PSI and still the Director of PSI's Alliance for People of Color. Um, I want to welcome my special guest for today is Miss Tam Mackroy, who is a Floridian. I'm going to give her a little bit of space to introduce herself and talk about the work that she does there in Florida. But she's a very dedicated PSI volunteer, volunteering with both the Florida chapter and also with our support groups. And we're going to be talking today about substance use disorder and perinatal mental health, which is something that Tam knows a ton about. But I want to turn it over to Tam. Just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and how long you've been hanging out with PSI.
Oh my gosh. Yes, yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on the show. And so, yes, everyone, my name is Tamara Mackroy, better known as Tam. I'm the founder and president of Maternal Matters Favorite. We are a 501c3 located here in Flagler County of Florida, and we provide counseling and support services to those with, perinatal postpartum mood disorders. But our specialty, our niche is those that are living through recovery or trying to get themselves there with regards to substance use disorders as well as opioid use disorders. And so I've been here in the background working and volunteering for PSI for almost close to 3 years. I provide that one-on-one counseling for the SGD population. And then just recently, I started facilitating the SGD support group. And so I'm there the first Monday of every month. We have a support group and we have individuals as far out as Canada that come on board, just, offsetting some of the things that are taking place and gaining some tools and mutual support in being able to navigate the waters of PMAD.
Thank you, Tim. That is such important work. I'm so glad that you are partnering with PSI and offering your skills, your talents, your passion. Um, so, how did you get into the work that you're doing with folks who are experiencing maybe in the postpartum period who experience substance use disorder? What brought you into that work?
Me myself, I went through it, right? And so my son just turned 22 in December of last year, and back then there was truly no conversations being had. The services were really scarce, and especially for individuals that look like me, talk like me, can relate to some of the things in which I was dealing with. And so fast forward a few decades later, right, just seeing that the numbers were still there and they were increasing. And when we looked at the death rates, of infants and mothers alike, it was like, okay, God, what am I supposed to do with this? And with that being said, in 2022, I was able to incorporate the business and just been working to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, right? Trying to heal and save lives.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of us, for PMADs in some way is part of our story, right? Or perinatal loss is what brought me into the work. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that part of your story with us, Tam.
Yeah, yeah.
So in your experience, like what have you seen, and in your experience, your study, and your practice, how do substance use disorders impact perinatal health or perinatal mood disorders?
Yeah, and so when we see mothers that are struggling with regards to having a substance use disorder and, either being pregnant or postpartum, there's levels of stigma where they know that they want to stop, but they're scared, right? Their child's going to get taken away, there's going to be punitive charges, they're going to jail and all these different things. And so we see folks suffer in silence. And that's what we're working to pretty much kind of like put a stop to, letting individuals know that, you can to achieve. And I say that because while our specialty is substance use disorders. I'm coming from lived experience, right?
Mhm.
And so when I talk to individuals and they're like, I Googled you, what? And it's like, yeah, I don't look like what I've been through, you know what I mean? And here I am actually coming up on 20 years of being clean, right? And then having some multiple years of sobriety and even, went through the rigmarole of cigarettes as well. And so I meet people where they're at, and let them know that you can attain it, you can achieve it. Let me tell you how I did it. Let's talk about what you have current state that you can apply and be able to start to heal and recover. What does it mean to do some self work? What does it mean to look at trauma informed type of therapy aspects so we can do the root cause? It's not enough to put a blanket on it. Regrettably, a lot of individuals, they go to programs and it's just a topical type of solution, but what does it mean to do some real deep diving and seeing where that root cause is and then working our way up from there and giving folks, the space to say, look, this is pretty heavy. I can't, okay, got it. What can we do? You know what I mean? It's not just a just toss it kind of away kind of thing. And I've found that a lot of moms really appreciate it, and even some dads, because we do have co-ed workshops, which we do, and we actually do them with a Haitian refugee group by way of a church.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I can imagine like if substance use is something that you struggle with before you get pregnant, right? I can imagine that uh, becoming pregnant and then it doesn't automatically make
Hmm.
the problem go away, right? And then if you are struggling with like your mood, not quite feeling yourself, that use of that substance is a familiar thing, right?
Hmm.
And so if that is a way that you've learned to cope, I can imagine that you continue to turn to the thing that feels familiar and that helps for you to cope when you're not, especially when you're not feeling yourself and you have the introduction of this new little person, and disrupting or changing, the dynamics in your life, your household.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great point because, when an individual has to, oh my gosh, I got to get clean, you know what I mean? Or they've been wanting to get clean and all those different factors start to take place. And then there is that introduction of that little one. And, you may have no support system at home. You once more, you're dealing with high levels of anxiety and depression, and you just want to numb. You just want to blank out. What does it mean? Like, oh my gosh, I wanted to have this perfect, healthy birth, and I had to have an epidural. My baby won't latch on, and I wanted to breastfeed. These kind of things play out in a mother's head, and they begin to feel less than when it's totally not so. And so a lot of times, and I say that because when individuals with addictions, right, when things, idealistically doesn't go as planned because of the reality of life that we live in, sometimes it's that need to get away from reality, a sucky life or whatever that looks like or so forth. And so what does it mean to start to understand that you have to address both, the emotional, psychological aspect of it all, and the co-occurring part with regards to the substance use? How do you start to peel back the layers? And that's one thing that we've actually been successful in doing with regards to just helping mothers understand that the experience that they're going through, the mental health challenges, it doesn't take away from the fact that they're still a great human being. And then
Mhm.
additionally, what does it look like to understand that, what, one day at a time with regards to your recovery plan? And let's make certain that you have action. It's not enough to just map it out, but what does it mean? And sometimes with the substance use support groups, I've had a group of individuals that were all in college, and it was like, how do I cope? Well, let's talk about playing out the whole tape. If you choose to use, that means you may not get the homework done. You may lose your financial aid. You may lose, opportunity to be in school. You may have to start, play out not just the highlights, but play out the lows as well. And coming from that space, because I had to do it, yesteryear, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, this may not be worth it.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine that, and so I can imagine that you'd hear kind of the tape that happens when a person who is has a substance use disorder finds out that they're pregnant. Like you were saying, that tape that starts to play is like, I wanted to get clean. Okay, now I've got to do it. I've got to do it. I've got to do it. I've got to get clean. And trying to figure out how to do that without support. Do you find that you work with a lot of folks who feel like this, because you talked about the stigma, right? And stigma is steeped in like this shame about this thing that I struggle with. And so do you tend to find that people try to work through this stuff on their own, um, and to feel like they have to get that under control before they can address other aspects of their health?
Yeah, yeah, well, we do. We see that. And what happens is individuals sometimes, realize that at some point that they truly they can't do it. They need some assistance. They need some support. And I'm a big advocate on individuals understanding what that looks like. Hey, we're healing together. You know what I mean? And what does it mean to not just have the social support network from us and or healthcare providers, but what can we actually have realistically within your own world? And I say that because, we have some parents where, they didn't have the best upbringing. You know what I mean? They don't have that support from their family net, that blood family net. And, in some instances, I have to kind of talk about, let's paint outside the lines, right? What does it mean to color outside those lines? Okay, so who do you have? Granted, your mom may not be on board, granted, your sister or whatever that looks like, and you guys kind of are an isolated family. You have a friend. Yes, I do. You know what I mean? So then that is your family, you know what I mean? And that is your support system, and finding ways of actually being okay with it, and I say that because I've had to really talk individuals into understanding that and not hold on to that hurt, but have a realization that granted you didn't get the kind of love in which you've been seeking, but now you have this child in which you can actually give that kind of love in which you wanted all along to that next generation. This is how we break generational cycles of dysfunction. It was like, oh my gosh, Tam, I can't. Yup, this is a new wave, And so, getting individuals to understand that, they then begin to have lessened levels of anxiety, and thinking that they cannot achieve things, or thinking that they actually need outside love and support that may not actually there, and then actually starting to embrace their parenthood, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is brand new, this is me, this is this, and I've actually seen that aha moment, the light bulb come on in a mother's face, and just the tears, and I'm like, girl, yes.
Do this. You can do this, right? This is an opportunity for you to do a new thing, a different thing. That's beautiful when you see that light come into people's, like that light bulb switch go on, right?
Yes,
What if
yes.
it's not the birthing parent, but like you said, like a lot of times people are isolated from social supports, but what if it is that the partner or other person who somebody depends on for support, the birthing person, they may not struggle with a substance use disorder, but their partner or other close family member or somebody in the house where the baby will be. Have you worked with those families, and how do you help people navigate through that kind of difficulty?
Yes, yes. Recently had a mom who, who was going through it, right? But husband wasn't, and it's a two-pronged thing. So there's been times where that, speaking specifically of that mom, her husband was supportive, you know what I mean? And he, kind of held things down, and understanding that this was really a parallel in which she was working to navigate, because he saw her constantly trying. And I see that for the most part, when support systems see that a person is, that statistically they will have greater outcomes. And so it really varies, right? When we have a person who may not necessarily have that kind of support, because them keep trying, you know what I mean? Going to get that white chip all over again, right? But at the end of the day, I tell individuals, no matter what that looks like, it's about your mindset, you know what I mean? And wondering what you can actually do to help achieve a higher level of well-being. What can we do within yourself to enhance it, right? What does that look like mentally for you? What does that look like emotionally for you? What does that look like spiritually, physically? All these different elements that you may have some control over because you may not always have what it is that you're seeking outward. And
Right.
I've using that type of methodology, I've seen individuals start to actually put pieces into place to be able to get some self sufficiency. And it's a slippery slope when you're dealing with those in addiction and the population of SUD, right? But at the end of the day, I believe that without a shadow of doubt, a person can always achieve that level of recovery as long as they keep putting one foot forward. It's like a person that's dieting, trying to lose weight, right? You go on a binge with some cake and cookies. You start over Monday. Monday, I'll get right back on track. Monday, well, keep on,
Yeah. Yeah. I love it that you said, because sometimes it is the partner that struggles with the substance use, right? And that might be the person who you count on for your main source of support. But I love it that you said you encourage people to extend their support network outside of the home. And so it might not be, that partner might not be the person you can rely on right now because they're struggling with their own. But as you are struggling as a person who's just given birth, you might be struggling with your own mood, your own feelings, right? It is ensuring, knowing that your primary support person may not be able to support you the same way because of their own struggles. It is not being ashamed to ask for the support of folks in that extended network who you can rely on.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, especially like you mentioned earlier, like not folks not wanting to tell physicians or ask for help because they feel like the system is going to come and intervene. And I can imagine that for people of color, and in the current climate,
Yes.
that might even be a greater concern. So what do you say to folks who may not have the immediate support, who want to reach out for additional support, but who are afraid that if I do that, that's going to compromise my ability to keep my child or invite the system in to my situation in the way I don't want the system to be involved.
Yeah. It's really hard, because for one, as a provider, we have to, build up that level of trust, and um, individuals are like you said, they're reluctant because they think that there's something's going to happen, and so for me, when I look at, what all does this person need? So, we have some one-on-one peer counseling happening. There may be some community resource needs as well. And, there may be some barriers with regards to integrated healthcare and so forth and so on. And so for me, it's making certain I get a team of individuals, right? When we talk about a continuum of care, that looks like this person and talks like this person,
Yes.
still with providing that professional level of care, right? And
Right.
so then you're able to connect with that person. You're using the same language. And I tell people that. Why? Because a veteran wants to get counseling from a person that's been in a war or two. Right.
Mhm.
And so then they're able to let down their guards and know that, this person is looking at things from the same lens. And so that's one thing that I work and try to do as much as I can. It's not always possible. But when I am, I've actually seen mothers become more open to receiving the care,
Mhm.
becoming more open to doing the self-work that's needed with regards to the resources and tools that's being provided, being more open to actually doing some deep diving and talking through some of the things in which, led them to the usage. They weren't getting some kind of level of support in when we think about early childhood trauma. and so forth and so on. And so these are the things, the tactics in which I've found as most successful as possible, especially dealing with our BIPOC
Yeah.
families, to make certain that we're able to really, really do our due diligence with helping a person. It's not enough to just talk from here, but really meet a person where they're at.
Yeah, meet a person where they are. And I love that you said, like, let me find, because we do know that one of the barriers, I think, to people of color accessing mental health care, period, you got to get past the stigma of saying that you need help. But then another barrier is, then, okay, so I say I need help, but I can't find somebody who looks like me to give me the help that I need. And there is something to that. I think about this in all of my, like, healthcare. Like, I want my gynecologist to be a woman, right? That's just me. I know that there's some fabulous, look, male gynecologists. Don't start sending us no emails. Y'all are doing a great job. This is just Andrea saying for Andrea, like,
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
level of comfort with my care. That's what my preference is. My own therapist is a Black woman, right? And so
yep.
there is something to that. And I was very reticent to even pursue therapy when I started therapy years ago, because of feeling like my life is going to be dissected by somebody that can't really understand my lived experience, right?
Come on now.
And
Yep.
so I can imagine, like, what kind of feedback do you get? Because not only are you a woman of color, but you are a woman of color who has been through this kind of journey. And so, what kind of feedback do you get from your clients and from the people you work with about what it's like to work with somebody who's walked the walk?
That part. I love this. They love it, right? Because I truly am coming from that space, and you wouldn't know. And so it gives them an inkling of, oh my gosh, maybe me too. You know what I mean? Like, I can do that. And I love that you said, and it was piggybacking off what I said about the connectivity. And I say that because, you know, yesteryear, 22 years ago, when the onset came, um, I went to a parenting class, and it was a older white woman with a British accent. And I distinctly remember, this lady don't know what I'm going through. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, how can she totally relate to what I was going through? And whatever went there, right? And so once more having, and this is why I advocate a lot for the peer counseling, or the peer specialists or whatever, peer mentors, because you want to really, if you really wanting to make that impact, individuals, they want to see, just like politicians, they want to see someone that knows what they're going through, that's going to really be able to speak things from the ways in which they're going. And so a lot of my mentees, or my clients, they appreciate it, and of course it's not necessarily the same substance, you know what I mean?
Right.
And Lord knows things have changed throughout the decades, right? And but I'm speaking from where I was 20 years ago in that substance to where they are current state. They're like, you know what I mean? And telling, some of those war stories where, oh, they get it and they appreciate it because they understand that I truly am here because I care, you
Because you,
know,
yeah,
because I want to save another life. Not many individuals are able to go through some of the perils that I went through, and still be able to have their faculties and health intact, right? And so
right.
forth, and still be able to navigate in a corporate America lane. And I'm really low key humble, but in pursuing their doctorate, like people, they're like, oh, and I'm like, girl, come on,
Yes,
let's get it.
yes,
So, I'm their coach.
yes. You are like the living, breathing, walking, like, hope, right? That they can see themselves in.
Mhm.
One thing that I love about our peer support programs at PSI, including our support groups, is that all of our support group leaders have some sort of lived experience,
Mhm.
right? And so you're not leading a group like what one of my girlfriends in ministry used to say to me all the time: you can't tell me nothing if you ain't been through nothing, right?
You know.
And so um can you talk a little bit about what it's like to lead a support group, what happens in a support group? Because I think a lot of times, the reluctance that I hear from people who might need some of that, that to be in a community with other people, not just you, but other people who are walking this walk right along with them, having the same struggles, is that they don't want to, how we are, like Black and brown people, like, I'm not about to come in no group with all these people I don't know and
Telling
tell
my business.
right? So can you talk a little bit about the substance use disorder support group that PSI has for our perinatal parents? Is it open to just people giving birth? Is it open to partners? And like, what is it like in there? What y'all, who all over there?
Absolutely.
What y'all doing?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's just for birthing parents, and we keep it specifically to the moms and those in that postpartum up to prenatal period, and so it's all love and respect. If anyone comes in outside of those realms, we make certain that we provide them with resources. But you know, just with any support group, not just even SUD, not even just substance use disorders, being able to be amongst your peers, you know what I mean, is somewhat is soothing, right? And so our motto is, there's no parent, there's no manual to parenthood, but there's a tribe for every parent. So in the support groups, we're in our tribe, and individuals get to realize that they're not, some anomaly. They're not, it's just not you. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, you too? Me too. I couldn't get the baby to sleep and I, wanted to go and do this and that. And they're able to bounce different things off of each other. One person, oh, well, I tried this and that helped and that worked. And it helps out the next person. And that's that community that you actually need. And it works in so many different ways, right? And so earlier where I was mentioning about, individuals sometimes not having the healthiest of family relations,
Right.
got a tribe. Come
Yeah.
on, the first Monday of every month, Miss Tam is here, you know what I mean, kind of a thing. And individuals, they find hope and light and being able to recognize that, oh my gosh, I am not going through this alone. My situation is not just something that's in my head either. You know what I mean? Because,
Right.
oh my gosh, it's a real thing. Yup, it's a real thing. And so those things are truly fundamental to a person being able to work through some of the parallels of not being able to get into full recovery. Because what we do know that our psyche will play tricks on us. You know what I mean? Oh well, I'm never going to get it. Oh well, I'm the only one going through this. So this is woe is me kind of a thing. But when you realize someone else, and it's like, oh, okay, kind of a thing. And I've actually seen individuals start to connect with folks outside of the actual support system, not just specifically PSI support group, because we do workshops and things like that in the community, and they bond. And so they have each other to hold on to, in between whatever that looks like of the next workshop or, a one-on-one counseling session and so forth and so on, which can sometimes it's better for the support group as opposed to one-on-one, because it's just more of an isolated conversation. And so having the agility to being able to maneuver either or has also been such a game changer for individuals and being able to abstain recovery.
I love that. Um, do For the support group, does a person have to be in a certain stage of their recovery to participate, or are there qualifications or limitations on who can come for the support group?
We just ask that you be there with open ears and willing, right? You can be on day one, you could be on hour one. It's okay. Just come on in the room and let's talk over some things, and it's an open forum, so it's not like, and next kind of a thing, right? Everyone is at free will to actually actively engage or not. We do a round robin of introductions, and that's the only time we ask that a person's camera is on. But if they sit there the whole time with their camera off, it's all good. They were there. And whether they were actively listening or passively listening, they were still plugged in. And that's half the battle. That's the first step.
I love that. I was thank you for saying that because I was going to ask you. You make people talk. You make people like people. You ask everybody to introduce themselves, but you're not forcing people to tell their stories or talk about where they are this particular day.
Yep, yep, yeah. It's one of the joys of a support group. You get to sit in the room, be a fly on the wall sometimes, and still get what you need. Whatever you need. You don't have to get it all. If you just needed that portion right there.
That's what you got. What you need for that moment, right?
Yep.
I love that, and about building your tribe, and so that having people like find ways to support one another too between your sessions and between their maybe their own individual sessions is an amazing benefit of participating in that support group.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Statistics show that there's so many barriers to treatments for mothers, and so I'm really truly. This is why I volunteer with PSI because of the platforms, the multiple platforms in which the organization provides for individuals that know something's off, with their kilter, and they actively want to seek help and try. And it doesn't have to. I tell everyone, your path is not anyone else's, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that is so important for us to share with individuals, especially older folks, because we come from a generation where it was like, everything's got to be on point, never let them see you cry, this and that. And it's like, you want some tissue? I got me some tissue. You know what I mean? Go ahead and get that thing out, because we can't continue to let things remain inside, internalizing them, because they fester, and then they manifest in unhealthy ways, and I tell individuals, you may, and this is why, before I get into that, this is why it's important for individuals to understand we got to do some deep work, self-work, right? And so it's not enough to just go and get high or eat a slice of cake or have whatever that is, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, if we don't deal with the underlying issues, we're all doing ourselves a disjustice. You're not going to be able to actually attain a level of healing and some levels of psychological composure without doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine that um, you have reflected on your journey a lot and doing the work kind of, I'm sure, like as a therapist, that part of what we do is we are continuously reflecting. Like I say to people all the time, like I don't care what the person looks like or what kind of body they were born into, I meet myself in that chair, meaning the other person looking back at me. I meet myself all the time, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
introduced to aspects of who I am that I didn't know were there until they showed up in this person that I'm here to journey with in treatment. So I wonder if you could have had anybody tell you 22 years ago, um, what is the one thing you would have wanted to know about this journey, as someone who struggled with substance use disorder and who is a new mom? What would you have wanted to know?
That it's okay, that it was truly okay to not have a perfect life, that it was no full there was no reason why I should have gone the route that I did. Um, and so full disclosure, and I say this because just this past Friday, I spoke at the ninth annual Perinatal Mental Health conference here in Florida. And I opened up with, after the great big bio, whatever. And I was like, yes, thank you. I'm all those things. And I used to be a crackhead, prostitute, and stripper.
Mm,
Clutch the pearls, you know what I mean? And I open that up like that, you know what I mean? And I do so, and sometimes in my public speaking, for individuals to understand from the depths from which I've come to where I'm at, and why this advocacy work, why this in the trenches, boots on the ground, holding a mother's hand and talking them through some things is truly paramount to me, because I didn't have that support back then. You know
mhm,
what I mean? I didn't have it in my home, through my parents. I didn't have it with in-laws. I didn't have it with, uh, you know, community organizations. you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so if I can help by being transparent and saving the next individual's life, saving them from some time in jails, institutions, in the streets, then you know what, it is well with my soul. And it's very important that we start to have more open dialogue about what we're going through. And so, granted, that's my story, but someone may have a story about birthing trauma, or PTSD, whatever that looks like, stillbirths and so forth. I keep an electronic Rolodex of of providers that can help a person. And then additionally, what we do know is that this does not discriminate. As I mentioned, I do work with a Haitian refugee population, and I don't speak a lick of Creole, but all of our curriculum is in Creole. All of our PowerPoints are in Creole. I work with a translator, and I stand there with my phone and I read everything in English, and I have the translator there, right? Because once more, we're talking about saving lives. We're talking about helping to heal souls. We're talking about really breaking generational traumas, because where what happens inside of a household may be just that house. That's not my house. Well, that child, that's going through the backlash of a mom, or maybe even a dad, because we know we have statistics about fathers having level of anxiety and depression. They go to school, and then they cut up in school, and then it spirals into another situation, disruption, and so forth. And I always give this analogy: next thing you know, you got a crisis unit at the end of the block. So it is a community problem. So let us make certain that we step in to stop the bleeding from happening.
Amen. I love that. I love that. Oh, Tam, thank you so much for being with us today. Is there anything else you want to tell us about Maternal Matters Favor, or the work that you're doing,
Oh my gosh.
and where we can find you?
Absolutely. And so we're here located in Flagler County. We actually provide services in multiple counties on the northeast side of Florida. So we're in Flagler, Seminole County, Orange County, Volusia County as well. And so we focus on one-on-one counseling, support groups, and workshops. And then additionally, we do have our third annual charity broadcast coming up, 24 Hours of Favor, where we will be sharing similar stories of resilience, right? What does it mean to survive, and what does it look like from one person to another? I had a doctor on who prestigious doctor, and was like, I didn't want to get out of bed to wash myself. So just, once more, sharing these stories for individuals to get a better understanding that they're not alone. We are launching an Adopt a Mom program where we'll be mobile, going out into the rural areas to make certain that we're meeting folks where they're at. So we're onboarding some doulas, and we have a perinatal navigator that's working to do some additional work in the community. We're just here taking things one day at a time. You can reach us at mmfavored.org. And then my personal email is tam@mmfavored.org. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to be on board and have this conversation.
Thank you, Tam. Thanks for the work you're doing there in Florida. Thank you for all that you do for PSI. Thank you for being a dedicated Alliance member. And thank you for your light and for sharing your story. And for being, like I said earlier, you are walking, talking, breathing hope for somebody, for a lot of somebodies, right? And you don't look like what you've been through, right? And I don't think that you've seen the best of what God has to do
Amen.
for you and through you. So
Thank you.
preaching for today. But I do want to encourage you, if you're watching and you or somebody who you know is in need of support. We heard Tam say she facilitates a substance use disorder and PMEDS group for PSI on the first Monday of every month. And what time is that?
It's 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Eastern Standard Time. Because we have people from all over.
But if you go to postpartum.net, you can find a listing of all of our active support groups. If you need help to get connected to services in your area. You can call our warm line, the PSI helpline. The number is scrolling there at the bottom of the screen. You have someone that can help you in English or Spanish that will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours to connect you to services. Our maternal mental health hotline, the National Maternal Mental Health Hotline, is open and ready for callers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are over 60 languages spoken on that line. And if that is if you or someone you love is struggling to feel like themselves during or following the pregnancy, there are trained counselors there that can help you and help walk you through and even refer you to some additional resources as well. That's 833-852-6262 or 833-TLC-MAMA. And last but not least, if you are in crisis, if you feel like you may not know if you want to live, or if someone who you love or is close to, you're concerned that they are in crisis, just call 988. 988 is the national crisis line, and there's somebody there that can help you, right? You are not alone. You are not to blame. Help is available. All right. I want to thank Tam Mackroy for being with us today and for this great conversation. And again, for all the work that you're doing, where you are, and all the work you're doing to help reach moms all over this country by helping with PS, volunteering with PSI. All right. This has been Calling the Conversation. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you next month. Bye bye.